Welcome, everyone, to Chirping Zebras, episode 81, Russ Francis, Randy Moss episode. And we'll get into that in a minute as to why. Mark Riley, virtually alongside Gino Binder Jr. and Josh Dolan. And want to, right off the hop, thank our sponsor, the Referees Crease, your one-stop shop for all your refereeing needs. Also want to thank AOA Studios for all the editing and all the production that they do. And we have some very exciting news coming next week on the sponsorship front, but I'll hold that till next week. We want to remind you to like and subscribe on YouTube. Smash that button, like and subscribe. Also find us on the social medias. We're on the Instagram, the Facebook, and of course,
the TikTok.
Thank you, Gino. Last week, we had a good little hen session talking about hockey and you know, what to expect for this coming season. And that was, it had been a long time since it was just the three of us.
Yeah, it was good. It was good just catching up and, you know, just talking about different things. I love having guests, but, you know, I really like talking to you two sometimes.
Well, yeah, I would hope. you and your Go Light microphone. I love it.
Yeah, and we added Gino's microphone last week, too. So, I mean,
yes,
we went
did,
through a few different colors, and we just landed on Bug Zapper Red.
Well, it's a terrier red. My daughter plays.
Oh, terrier. Yeah,
so,
it could be.
Go terriers. Yeah.
We could. It could be red for a lot of different things.
And
so,
she's a goalie, so
right?
Red light.
Although you don't want to see that light on if you're a goalie dad.
No.
I lit that lamp a lot back when I played. I'll just say that.
Yeah, you were a goal judge?
Square after you were done.
Yeah, I was a goal judge. Fuck you, Josh. Oh,
an illuminator.
I broke it. I broke the rule. 2.5 minutes in. Damn it, we'll have to beep
I'll bleep it.
YouTube's going to put us in jail.
Wasn't me.
No, I know. It's shocking that it wasn't you. It was me. I don't know how that happened. It just slipped out. I'm apropos for today. I'm wearing my Matte Light foundation shirt that I got at the shootout. If you haven't watched that Matte Light episode, you're missing out. We've had just a run of great guests. You know, today is no different. I'll say that.
Yeah, leads right in. I was gonna, you know, wear my Patriots 28-3 T-shirt, but it's in the laundry, so I couldn't do that.
That's never stopped you before.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
Without further ado, we have a great guest. Our guest is a Patriot historian. He's the author of 2 books, Total Patriots and Relive Patriots History. And he's a good friend of the show. And we want to welcome Bob HYLDBURG to the show. Bob, welcome to Chirping Zebras.
Welcome.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Gino. And behind the scenes, Josh.
Now, before we get into like what it is you do and bring to the table as far as the Patriots history, we met, the first time we met was at Giggles in Saugus. You had come to a comedy show and we just hit it off.
Well, you're a riot, so I like to laugh, you know?
I know that sounded weird. We just hit it off, so we started dating. No,
but that is unique about comedians, right? Like you guys perform, and then afterwards you BS with the crowd, and the people come to see you, right? It's like you got a fan base almost, right? Yeah, it's kind of unique. Like where like refereeing, you get done, you want to duck out, you don't even want to know you performed.
Yeah, not much big of a fan base for referees, I don't think.
Leaving an establishment as a referee must be like after you do comedy and you bomb, you got to leave through the kitchen or the back door. It's just
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't go out the front and mingle.
That's actually a great analogy, Josh. It really is. And I love the way Gino said, you know, you got to almost have a fan base.
Almost.
Yeah, almost.
You're having fun.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Hey, you got 1,000 followers?
Well, 999 more than you. Is it? I know we're a little angry today.
No,
the weather.
I want to ask right off the top here. So you're a Patriot historian. Yeah. Is there a franchise in all of sports, let alone the NFL, that has the storied past, checkered past, crazy past that the Patriots have?
There's a lot of crazy stories out there, but to have the crazy past and then have 6 world championships, I mean, even 1 championship, when we won and beat the Rams, we were all stunned that, I mean, the Gil Santos call, it felt all of us. It's like, we are world champions, you know, because in 1960, we were the last team part of the AFL.
Right.
You know, and the guy that owned the team had to borrow money to, raise the funds to really put a team together. We didn't have a name. We didn't have a place to play. I mean, Billy Sullivan that had to talk to his wife. They were going to buy a cottage down the Cape. And he says, you remember that $25,000 to buy that cottage? I said, all right, if we move that over to buying a team, even though the Boston Yanks and the Boston Redskins and other Boston football teams played at Fenway Park and they lost money, but is that okay, honey? Sure, why not? Yeah, and it started with that.
Wasn't Dom DiMaggio one of the original investors for that 25 grand?
They had to come up with 250 grand, and they had 10 guys come up with 25 grand, including Billy Sullivan, and Dom DiMaggio, Joe's brother, was one of them. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was interesting that there was 10 people, and they only paid that, and now you look at what they're worth. It's just stupid.
Billions of dollars, yeah.
Even when Kraft bought it, it was at the time the most anyone paid for a franchise, correct?
$172 million, yeah.
And now it's worth what, 250 billion?
Some not that big, but a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I suppose once you pass a couple billion, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, crazy. They played in a game in 1961, just to kind of jump in here, and they played at BU, and they had 5,000 people that showed up, and they didn't have seats for them, so they stood around the infield and stood all around the field. And in the last play of the game, there was a guy that ran onto the field as an extra linebacker and prevented the other team from scoring, and we ended up winning the game. So we had the first 12 men, because a guy, the referee, we'll start with the referee story. The referee didn't see him because he was right next to him. And he deflected the pass. We ended up winning the game.
That's actually kind of awesome that you think that was planned?
No, there was 2 seconds left in the game, so everyone crowded the field, and the ref said, oh, no, there's one more play. They didn't have digital clocks back then, so they forced everyone back off to the sidelines, and this guy kind of didn't really get off the field. He kind of went back to the back of the end zone, and then as the plays started lining up, he snuck behind the referee in the middle of the field and was over his right shoulder, so he couldn't see him, and then he saw there was an opening, and there was going to be a slant pass like they did in Seattle, and he moved over to where the linebacker should have been. Quarterback saw him, overthrew his guy, and we ended up winning the game.
That's awesome. The first 12 man. I love it.
So we've been cheating ever since.
That's it.
That's the beginning.
Yeah, everyone wants to think that, right?
So that was against the Dallas Texans and Hank Stram, and he actually taped the game. It wasn't on TV, and they became the Kansas City Chiefs. So for many years, when you saw the Patriots play the Kansas City Chiefs, they played that little bit of crazy man on the field, 50-year-old guy runs on the field and saves the game.
That's awesome. Now, there's so many things to get into. I mean, with the history of the Patriots, but want to break it down. Owners. I mean, there's been some colorful owners. I mean, right back to the Sullivans, because there's so many pieces. There's coaches, there's stadiums, there's, owners. There's it's just amazing. That's why I said I think it might be the most storied history. Let's start with owners. I mean, you've had Ortwine and Victor Kayam and guys, I was reading about it a little bit, and guys I forgot, that were coaches. It's just crazy.
Well, one of the coaches that we'll talk about Victor Kayam in a second, and Ortwine. Ortwine actually brought Parcells here, so thank God for Ortwine. But Victor Kayam and the whole Zeke Moat in the locker room kind of thing,
Yeah.
That was insane.
That was a pretty low point. And didn't he say, how did he refer to the reporter? She's a crazy bitch or something?
Yeah.
I mean, and you think about, imagine if that happened today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Karen Garigian's been there forever, 20 or 30 years, but this was a lot of, and back in the day, I mean, even some of the coaches didn't want women in the locker room, the guy from the Cleveland Browns, he didn't want the women there. So there was a lot of controversy back 30 plus years ago. But we actually had a coach, Cleve Rush, that almost got electrocuted on his first press conference for the Patriots.
How does that happen?
Jeez.
There's the video of that?
No, there's a story behind it, but it was in like a hotel, 1971, and he was a little psycho too. He didn't last too much longer. But anytime he went to his office, he just had a bottle of scotch and poured scotch, whatever he want to talk about, you know? So he had some emotional problems.
Now, with the different owners, this team, how many, probably what, 3 times this team's almost moved?
Yeah, they initially in 1960, they had no place to play. So they played at Boston University, they played at Boston College, Fenway Park, Harvard Stadium, and then eventually moved to Foxboro. But Billy Sullivan had an amazing idea back in the 60s to build a dome stadium in Norwood. And then they were going to have one near Fenway Park. And the Red Sox didn't want anything up part of it. So, and we were going to be in South Boston, but never mind moving it to Hartford and St. Louis. Seattle, we might have moved to. We actually played a home game in Alabama one time just to see what the crowd was like down there. So we were always on a really tight financial straits. And, you know, when they built the stadium in September of 1970, it ran out of money and the plumbing wasn't so great in 1971, and they had a thing called the Great Flush. I don't know if you heard about that. But when they were building the stadium, this is 1971 for $6 million, and the aluminum seats, if you ever went to a game from the 70s up until when Brady left on that tuck rule game, that was the last game in that stadium, they hired union and non-union workers. So when the union workers found out that they hired non-union plumbers, they sabotaged the plumbing. So the urinals were 3 or 4 feet high, right? And the showers weren't working, and there was all kind of major problems to the point where the town of Foxboro almost shut them down, and they had a thing called the Great Flush a day before an exhibition game against Atlanta in 1971. They said if you guys had a couple weeks to fix it, they had a game there and everything overflowed and there was sewage everywhere and it was a disaster. So they had 320 people go to all the toilets and they had a whistle and the loudspeaker said, all right, everyone go and flush all the toilets and turn all the water on. And they had all the reporters and anyone from town, anyone that knew anyone, flushing all the toilets at the same time, and they looked nothing back, not back washed or whatever. And they said, that's fine. And of course, there was only 320 people flushing, not the 30,000 the next day at halftime. And it backed up that day, and it took a year to whole fix. So it was a nightmare.
That gives a whole new meaning to a shitty stadium.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
Jesus, the Great Flush. Now they finished it. Didn't they finish it in like 357 days or something, like just over a year?
Yeah, I just posted something the other day. September 13th, 1970 is when they're, France Governor Sargent is putting the shovel in the ground. Here we go. We're starting it. And then they played their first game in August of 71. It was wild. Less than a year it was done.
No wonder why it was terrible. Well, I just said a little over a year, but I said 357 days. So that'll tell you what my math's doing today.
Yeah,
Jesus, I hate
days. That's all.
Yeah, they changed math, by the way.
Well, people, when you put out something online in a reel or something, people love correcting you. If you spell a name wrong or if you say something, man, it's
the buddy that always has to correct your text.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep, I just wanted to point that out.
But I mean, the other thing about the stadium is the first Monday night game they had this guy Jumpin' Joe Gerlach, who is a diver off cliffs. And he jumped out of hot air balloons, and they put him out in the 50-yard line, and they blew up a balloon and put him up there. And he comes out of the balloon and falls into this hot air mattress, in the 50-yard line. A gun goes off like somebody shot him, and he raises his hand. Well, that was an 8 o'clock Monday night game. Well, the Patriots fans had never been to a Monday night game, so they got to the stadium around noontime, and by 3 o'clock, they're completely past it. They have a nap, 6 o'clock, they start again. By the time the game started, they're in their second or third drunk. And we had over 150 people that were arrested. And we didn't have any place to put them. There was no jails back then. They put 6 in Sharon. They sent 7 to Taunton and 5 in Foxboro. They had 100 people. So they just chain link them to the fence and let them dry it off for the next night.
Chain link them to the fence.
There you go. Sleep it off, boys. And they didn't have a Monday night game for like another 10 years.
Now, wasn't it when the stadium opened, no one could get to it because of traffic? Because they mustn't have thought of that.
Yeah, so the first exhibition game was 8 o'clock on Saturday night. And there's only one way in. Even nowadays, even with the traffic and shutting down the lanes and stuff, it still takes an hour to get in, a half hour before the game. But it's Route 1. There was no police. There was no traffic. And I talked to a buddy of mine who had a first date with this girl. And the father said, all right, the game's at 8, it's over 11, try to get her home by 1. And they live in Attleboro, which is 20 minutes away. He didn't get home until about 4 o'clock in the morning. They didn't leave the parking lot until about 2:30. They couldn't get out of the parking lot. 30,000 cars trying to get out of the parking lot. And of course, the father is in the front yard saying, I told you 1 o'clock, it's 4 o'clock. And he's freaking, no, I got stuck in traffic. Yeah. And like 2 hours later, when the news comes on, he sees there was a 6-hour backup in traffic and no one could get out of the parking lot. He's all right, you're good. But
no cell phone back then either.
No, 1970? No, 71?
No.
No way. No.
No, we were lucky we had actual phones, landlines.
Yeah, and you parked in the woods. You know, there was people had hibachis back then, you know. So sometimes they put the hibachi in, and there's still, you know, the coal or, you know, the charcoal that's still burning. Some guys would put it underneath their car so people wouldn't trip over it. Well, you put it underneath the Volkswagen, next thing you know, come back, the Volkswagen's on fire. The fumes of the gas, and there we go. There goes your $400 Volkswagen. There you go.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no. And a Volkswagen was not common, right? I mean,
no,
like it is now. So,
all those kind of stories. Yeah, people love that stuff.
So, coaching.
Yeah.
Like the coaches that the Patriots have over the years. I mean, and I'm older than Gino and Josh. I mean, Josh, you grew up in a time where all the Patriots did was win.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a time where I remember when they were 1-15 and they sucked.
I got the tail end of
I do too. Yeah.
all the Boston teams losing. So it was like right around 4th grade, they started winning up until, well, now.
Yeah. Gino, you
were a
remember
freshman
that?
I was a freshman in college when they won their first Super Bowl.
All right. So, yeah you saw it.
Yeah.
But the 1970s, like that was, I mean, pretty suck, wasn't it? I mean, they weren't good.
Awesome unis, though.
True.
No, they weren't good. Chuck Fairbanks came in after replacing a bunch of coaches that lasted 6 months or a year or two. But he brought in Hannah, and then they traded Jim Plunkett. And from Jim Plunkett, we got Rabin Claiborne, and we had Mike Haynes, and we had Russ Francis, and Stanley Morgan, and Steve Grogan, a 5th-round pick. So we had a little bit of a team. 1975, we went 3-11. 1976, we went 11-3. And that's the game we lost to the Raiders in the, roughing the passer game, that type of thing. But that was,
yeah, I was shocked that the roughing the passer was even a thing back then, because you used to be able to kill the quarterback.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been called. I mean, there were other mistakes that we made. I mean, Russ Francis was a tight end, and he threw a tight end pass that was intercepted. And there was a play that the referee put the ball down and our guy kicked it, and it was 15-yard penalty, and that put us out of field goal range. And there was a time we went off sides. Steve Grogan changed the call, but didn't tell anyone except for his center, and they went off sides. Instead of 3rd and 1, it's 3rd and 6. So there was a couple mental errors that we didn't take advantage of. But, Ray Hamilton put his hand up, deflected the pass, but back then you could crush the quarterback. I mean, even in the 70s and you see guys
forearm shiver
on the head. Yeah.
Yeah, suplexes and everything. They'd pick them up and drop them on their head.
Absolutely. Pile driver. Yeah.
That was their first time making the playoffs, right?
They won in 1963, made it to the playoffs. They beat Buffalo in Buffalo in 1963. And then they had to travel to San Diego to play in the AFL championship. The problem with that is Mike Holovac, who was the coach, he had an interview with Will McDonough of the Boston Globe, and he told them all the different things. Oh, we're going to blitz, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And there was a guy that heard the interview because they're in San Diego. There were people that were kind of scouting around and hearing around, and somebody reported it to the San Diego coach and said, hey, they're going to blitz you all day. And, of course, we blitzed all day, and every time we blitzed, they threw a drop play or a screenplay, 50-yard touchdown, 50-yard touchdown, 40-yard touchdown. They beat us 56-10 on like 7 huge 50, 60, 70-yard plays that we were out of position. But that was the first time in the National Football League, because that was the American Football League, that they beat the Raiders. And they should have beat the Raiders. They would have beat the Steelers. They would have won the Super Bowl. But the Raiders lost only one game that year, and the Patriots beat them 48-17 at Schaefer Stadium earlier in the season. So we had speed, we had athletic ability, and we had a huge running attack with Sam Bam and Hannah and Leon Gray and all that kind of stuff. But when we played in Oakland, they didn't cut the grass. They watered the grass down. They slowed us down, and we made some mental errors, and we lost the game.
Now, so that tells me that the Raiders got to stop bitching about the tuck rule game.
Exactly.
Yes. They owed us one.
Well, here's the other thing that if you want to talk about referees. So 3rd and 5, Russ Francis is a huge target. He's about 7 yards into the play, and Grogan throws him and hits Russ Francis right in the chest. The problem is that Russ couldn't bring his arms around because Filippiano had bear hugged his arms. So he couldn't actually even bring his arms to catch it. No call. I didn't say anything. Russ Francis said the fix was in. They wanted Oakland to win because, here's a team that only won 3 games the year before, maybe going to the championship. And the Raiders, with all that mystique and stuff, he said there was no call. I didn't say anything. Catches the pass. We move down the field. We probably win the game.
I loved Russ Francis. He was one of my favorite players. I mean, every time I played in the backyard, I was Russ Francis. Epic lip sweater. I mean, he had the best stash, I don't know if you guys remember him.
I don't.
You don't remember? Yeah, because he would have been playing when you were probably just born, but Russ Francis, man.
6'6", could fly like the wind. First time he ever picked up a javelin in high school, he threw a set of national record.
Jeez.
Just an amazing guy. So I had 2 stories. So in that game, Filippiano bear hugs him. Nothing happens. A couple of years later, Russ Francis, he's flying planes in Hawaii. The Pro Bowl's in Hawaii. Filippiano makes the Pro Bowl, and he calls Filippiano and his wife and said, listen, I fly people. I take them through the volcanoes. I tip the plane on its side so you can see in the volcano. It's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, sure. So they're flying the plane. He tips the plane. You can look in the volcano. And as he tips the plane, he opens the door, and then he unbuckles Filippiano's seatbelt. Filippiano is looking right into the volcano, and the door is open, and his wife is in the back trying to scratch Russ Francis. And about 3 seconds later, he levels it off and says, remember that game that you bear hugged me? I think we're even now.
Crazy.
Holy.
That's a true story. Yeah.
Is he I'm surprised he's not from Southie, Gino.
Yeah, right?
Sounds like a Southie, a Southie special.
Hey, we're not going to get you today, but we'll get you.
We'll get you. So the other story is, I've interviewed a couple hundred players, and I asked, is there anything that I don't know, any kind of weird stories that happened on the field, And he says, well, I did something that no one will ever do again. And I said, what'd you do? He says, I landed a helicopter on the 50-yard line of the field before practice. So Joe Green and the BZ copter, they would, Russ Francis is up there before practice at 6 o'clock in the morning. He's flying the helicopter because he had a license, and he's pretty cool. And Joe's like, all right, I can look at the traffic. Oh, look out for an accident on Route 1 in Dedham, whatever. And then Russ is, I got to get to practice by 8:30. Let's just go and land in the parking lot. As he goes over, he sees it's like an inch or 2 of snow on the field. And they practice in the field. He says, I don't want to practice. I'm from Hawaii. I don't want to practice in the field. So he goes on the field, and he just takes the helicopter, and he just kind of uses the wings just to kind of blow the snow off the field. And he goes up and down the field, lands it on the 50-yard line, and they're all screaming, what's going on? And he said, hey, I cleared the snow for you, coach. I'm all set, And then Joe takes it and takes off. And he says, don't you ever do that again. And he said, I'm good. I know how to fly this thing.
That's the shit like no one knows about. Like that.
Did the FAA know about it? I feel like he broke some kind of rule.
But there was no wires backlighting on the field like they have with cameras. This was, 1977 or something.
Wide open.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Like that's the stuff. And that's why we wanted to have you on, because like that's a story I bet a ton of people, even my age, wouldn't remember, because that wasn't something that they put on the news, right?
No, you never heard that.
Yeah. I mean, that's
now are those type of like, I haven't had a chance to dive into your books yet, but I do want to. Are those type of stories that you put into both your books, or a couple of books you've put out?
We did the player profiles of like 50 players. So Russ, some of those stories are under Russ's name. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, the other crazy story, you've seen the movie Rudy, right?
Yeah.
Notre Dame and stuff. There was a guy, Bob Gladio. Bob Gladio played on the 66 championship Notre Dame team. They tied the game 10-10 against Michigan State. Because they tied, they win the championship. So he was a star on that team along with Rocky Bleier. He comes to the Patriots as a special teams guy, punt returner, plays for a couple of years. And then in 1970, we got to play at Harvard Stadium. Boston College didn't want us. Fenway Park didn't want us. So we're playing at Harvard Stadium. And he gets cut 2 days before opening day. Now, opening day, if you're on the opening roster, you get a $2,000 bonus. So he's like so disappointed that he's not going to get $2,000. $2,000 is a lot of money in 1970. So he's got an apartment in the south end of Boston. He goes out with all his buddies Friday because they're all in town to see him play. They're playing against the Miami Dolphins, Don Shula's first game. So it's a big, big deal. And he's out drinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning before the game. He's hanging out with his buddies, drinking Schlitz beer and port wine. And he finally figures it out and says, I know it's sold out, but I'm sure I can talk my way in. And there's no seats. It's just cement. Talks his way into the stadium and his buddies are looking for him. And as he walks in, they're on the field. They're practicing, warming up. And he said, man, I have 2 sheets to the wind. If the coaches see me, I don't want them to see me. Maybe later in the week, if something happens, maybe they'll call me if somebody gets hurt. And as he sneaks underneath, he hears the owner of the team, Billy Sullivan. Hey, if anyone knows how to get a Bob Gladio, we just had 2 guys that we just cut in the locker room. We got John Outlaw coming from Milton. He's going to Curry College and get on his uniform, and he's going to show up in uniform in a few minutes. Yeah, Bob Gladio, we just cut him. So if anyone knows how to get a hold of Bob Gladio, please report to the locker room. And he's in the stands, and he's like, did I hear my name? He goes down there, and they said, hey, here's the $2,000 bonus. You want to play? Put your uniform on. You're on the kickoff team. We start in 5 minutes. Get out there.
Perfect. Sold.
He's like, man, I'm in no shape. I mean, I probably had 4 hours sleep in 3 days. So he says, I'm just going to run down the field, half speed, get off the field. No one's even going to know I'm out there. Certainly, we kick off. Gino kicks off to Jake Scott. Jake starts running with the ball, sees a wide open area, gets away from his lockers. Bob Gladio is running off the field. Jake Scott's running up the field, and they collide. They don't even see each other. Out of nowhere, boom. Tackle made by Bob Gladio. How did Bob Gladio get in this game? He wasn't even on the roster. And it makes Life magazine, a drunk on the stands, makes the tackle on the opening kickoff, and he plays 2 more years. And then he's in the movie Rudy. There's a Rudy scene in the restaurant and says, hey, that's Bob Gladio. He's mentioned in that movie, because he knew one of the actors in the movie from Notre Dame. And they said, yeah, we'll get you in. We'll get you in. They don't show him, but they mention his name. Crazy stuff like that.
That's absolutely insane. And it's funny because a former guest of ours, our good friend Greg Murphy, comedian Murph,
I know,
hates Rudy, hates the movie.
Yeah.
He hates it, just hates it. So
now the other part of that Rudy movie is the people that were in the stands. That was the game that BC actually beat Notre Dame in a big upset. And the fans that were in that game that they used as part of their background was that BC game that the Notre Dame actually lost. So a little inside information on that Rudy movie too.
I bet Murph still hates it, but that's all right. You brought up a name who I think is arguably the best offensive lineman in the history of the NFL, John Hannah.
Yes, yeah.
Watching him play, he was just an absolute beast.
He was only 260 pounds too.
Yeah, but his
played
thighs
were like cows. I mean, they were just massive, and he was as intense as Tom Brady is, focused and all that, every play. Rodney Harrison kind of like, I'm going to just run you over and get up and then run over the next guy and then get up and run over. I'm going to block 3 guys on this play. There's a game against the Miami Dolphins where Pete Brock is the center and Pete Brock blows out his knee in the first play. And they go back to the huddle and Pete Brock says, hey, John, I just blew up my knee. I can barely walk. He says, can you go one more play? He says, your backup sucks. We got to have you out there. Just stand there. We'll cover for you. And the next play, he's limping back to, hey, can you do one more play? Can you do one more play? What are you going to say to Hannah? No, I'm out. Get me out. He played the whole game. 2 days later, Brock had major surgery on his knee. But he played the whole game, got the game ball. We won the game. But you don't tell no to John Hanna that you're going to step out because, oh, your knee hurts.
So men were men.
John Hanna's my brother, my oldest brother, Teddy, who we mentioned, it was a Bruins dentist. He absolutely worshiped John Hanna. He thought he was best. So Hanna was known as the Hog. Well, back in when the Patriots, it would have been 86, they played the Dolphins in the AFC Championship.
Correct.
It was Squish the Fish, right?
Right.
That was I don't know, Gino, you remember this Squish the Fish?
Yes, I remember Squish the Fish, yeah.
So we did a video back before there was like, the TikTok and all that crap. We, my nephew and my brother made a video of, a Squish the Fish kind of like pump up video, My brother dressed as a pig, full on pink jumpsuit, pink, like, what do you call it? Stockings over his face, the nose, the whole thing. And he was Hog Hanna. And he actually went as Hog Hanna that Halloween. We went to a Halloween party. He was Hog Hanna. And the Squish the Fish, we won. And then, of course, we play the Bears, and that was a disaster. I mean, we looked good for about a minute. That was it. But I met John Hanna. Kind of cool. I was running a sports camp in East Boston at the stadium in the summer. And I had a Patriots helmet. It was like a fake helmet, but it looked real. I had it for my I've told you guys I did Riley's Locker Room on Milton Cable Access back in the day. You guys know about that. And the training ground for right here, Chirping Zebras. So I had it in the background just as like a prop. I bring it over because Hannah's coming to the football camp. And I bring it over for him to sign for my brother. And I'll never forget, he was so gracious and nice, and he actually asked me, because back then I was kind of jacked, well documented. Gino will document it, and he said, I just want to have you a question. I go, what? He goes, how do I get arms that big? And I looked at him, I go, you're fucking John Hanna.
Yeah, right.
And he was like, we had a laugh about it, but really cool guy. And for my money, just one of the.
Absolutely. When Andre Tippett got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I was part of a team that put together some of the stats. They called me Bob the Stat Man for a couple of years. In his 15th and final year, he gets inducted, and I get out there, and John Hanna did a little luncheon. And I had met John a couple times, and he says, hey, Bob, come on up on stage. So I was up on stage with John Hanna interviewing him.
That's so cool.
At the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I was like, oh, my Lord, this is awesome. And this is before my book even came out. It was just kind of like pretty cool stuff. So John was great.
That's awesome. Andre, we used to say Andre tip, hit. That was, I don't know if that was just me and my friends or that was a whole thing, but that's what we used to refer to him as. Because he used to pound people. Talk about
Especially
beast.
The Jets. Yeah, Ken O'Brien and all those guys. Yeah, Richard Todd. Yeah.
How long have you been kind of covering the Patriots?
I started my research in 94. I'm sitting there with a bunch of guys like this and saying, who's the greatest player to wear number? And we got up to the 40s and 50s, and I couldn't think of some guys in the 40s and 50s. So I said, well, let me get a Patriots media guide. And I found out there was a whole bunch of players that had NA next to their name. So I called the Patriots and said, what's this NA? It's not available. We don't care. We're moving on. Those are the guys that played in the 60s and 70s. So I love numbers. I'm a stat guy. I have an accounting background. I said, I'm going to start my research. And I wanted to come up with every uniform number of every player that ever played, if they only played in one game. So it started in 94 as a hobby. And then I met the Will McDonough and Ron Hobson and Borges and all the guys, Jerry Callahan, all the guys that were in the, and who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? And I met guys like the guy that was the Bill Bates, the trainer of the Boston Patriots, and Phil Castanetti hooked me up with a whole bunch of people. And I met Nick Bonacarni and Gino and Babe Perilli and Larry Eisner and all those guys from the Boston Patriots, and started asking them questions. So it was a labor of love, and still they started winning. And, here I am just doing it on a part-time basis, looking stuff up, going to the microfilm, putting stuff down. And then they win a championship against the Rams. And I'm like, I don't have information from 1963 and 67 and 69. I can't put the book together with 3-4 years missing. And then eventually I got to the Patriots, and I would call the Patriots, and Stacey James says, can I come in and do some research? Who are you? I'm just a fan. I want to do some research. I want to know every blocked punt by every Patriots player. I want to know every double lateral. I want to know every onside kick recovery. What are you, crazy? So I would go in on Tuesdays at 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night and have access to whatever they had. Those
No kidding.
play-by-play, just anything that they had. Chief statisticians, their books, I would go through them all. Can I bring this back next? Yeah, sure. Sign the name and bring it back. And I did that for 10 years. And then eventually put it all together. The Patriots gave me a disc of every single play of every single game on a disc. So if I had to look something up, put it in the computer, oh yeah, that happened here. Third down. And I put together a list of anything you wanted to know. Nick Cafado hooked me up with a publisher because he wrote the first book, The Impossible Team, in 2001 with Triumph Books. I sent them 1,200 pages of stuff, and they said, that's too much. And we got it down to 800. And next thing you know, we got a book.
That's crazy. How many Patriot games have you watched? Like on those discs and everything? Like,
I've seen everything. I've looked at the play-by-play of every single play. They didn't have sacks until the early 80s. I went back to the 60s and said, oh, tackle behind the line of scrimmage, that's a sack. And I'd go to the Patriots. Oh, yeah, Larry Eisenhower, yeah, sack. So I kind of recreated a lot of the sacks, fumble recoveries, forced fumbles, tip passes. I found a guy that no one even heard of that played in 2 games in 1960. NFL never heard of him. Pro Football Reference never heard of him. The Patriots never heard of him. But I had the play-by-play that he had a couple tackles in these games. Leroy Phelps. We don't even know. We have the year he was born. We don't have the date of he was born. But we found him. And then I found a guy that played in 1 game. And the only reason I found out is because I interviewed a guy that was from Arlington High School. And I said, what happened after you finished? He said, the guy showed up on Thursday. They gave him my uniform number. Sunday, he says, I want to go back to truck driving. This is, I'm getting hit too much. And he gave him the uniform back to me. And a couple weeks later, I went back in with my same uniform. No one had his uniform number. And only because I interviewed this guy, he said, oh, yeah, my 67. So now Willis Perkins has a uniform number. No one knew that.
How do they not know a player that played for them? That's crazy.
They didn't have rosters back then. They had guys showing up and guys leaving at halftime. And, you know, they didn't. This is 1961. They didn't have any of that kind of stuff. They weren't on TV that much. One of my books lists all the games that were on TV. We remember Boston Patriots maybe made on TV twice a year. Not every game, maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, depending who they were playing on TV.
It was all radio.
Yeah. But not TV. The game
so
of the
this
week.
sounds like. So you sound like my brother-in-law, Mike Dussault, works for the Patriots now, but you know, way back when he just started like he lived out in California. He was a writer, you know, he worked out there and he just loved the Patriots, like huge Patriot fan, and just started blogging and had Pat's propaganda he came up with. Sure. And he was like you, like he just like researched the schemes, like researched everything and just came to love it, and you know, wrote every week, wrote an article and this and that, and the Patriots reached out, and then he's getting tickets to games and promoting the Pats, and next thing you know, he moves to Boston and he's working for him. Now he does the post and pregame. He's one of their big writers. So it's just a passion that he, like, you never knew where, you know, just a hobby would take you. And now he's working for, you know, he says he's not even working a day in his life. He's just, you know, doing something he loves, you know.
Absolutely. For 13 years, I'm in this room, and Stacey James comes in, and he says, hey, Bob, the NFL is looking for guys that are really serious about statistics. And we want you to be part of this player participation thing. The NFL is going to hire you, but you got to come to every single game. You got to come to every exhibition game. And we want you to take pictures. We want you to analyze the games. I was there for 15 years as a part-time gig. And one of the things is we used to take pictures to identify every player on every play. So there'd be one guy either on top of the scoreboard, and I was up there a couple of times because one of our guys was kind of claustrophobic and he didn't want to get up on the roof. So I was up there, or I was at the other end zone, third level up where the banners used to be, 2001, 2003, and 2004, and just have a tripod and take 7 or 8 pictures for every single play, maybe 1,000 pictures per game, and I probably took over 100,000 pictures. But I was there during the Brady era from 2005 to 2018 for every single game, and just like, I'm pinching myself. I'm getting paid for this? Holy moly, this is unbelievable.
That's wild. Now, you mentioned Brady. Outside of Brady, and I know it's tough because, you know, we could go position by position, but who do you think is the best Patriot prior to Brady? Again, I know it's kind of it's a tough question because obviously a lineman is different than a linebacker, but you know, who do you think is up there? Maybe the top 5?
Well, I liked athletics. Athletic guys. I mean, John Hanna was 260. I mean, you can't block a guy that's 380 like a Vince Wilfork nowadays. But he was so intense. But the athletic, I mean, Russ Francis, they call him all-world tight end. And Howard Cosell, he had a big game against the Steelers in his second year, I guess. And Russ Francis is, I like playing football. I'm pretty athletic, but every time I catch the ball, they're punching me in all over different parts of my body. Stop calling me all-world tight end. Howard Cosell says, either get tough or get out, But Russ Francis could fly like the wind, And John Hanna said, he had more talent, Russ Francis, than anyone on the team, but he just didn't apply himself to be that intense. Stanley Morgan's another guy we're trying to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Tremendous talent. I mean, he averaged almost 20 yards per reception back when they didn't even throw the ball that much, but when they threw it, he caught it, and he just took off. No one could catch him. But, I mean, Tippett with his hand-eye coordination and the karate and all that kind of stuff and his spin moves, he was ahead of his time. Not as strong as, maybe as intense as and crazy probably as Lawrence Taylor, but he was real focused, and he played on some bad teams, which hurt some of his chances. Those are some of the guys. I mean, Irving Fry is another one that didn't apply himself. He left one time at halftime because he got fairly injured and they didn't want to put him back in the game. So he took his car and he drove into Foxboro and he had a Mercedes and he ran into a tree on purpose because he didn't want to be here anymore. And the Mercedes didn't even get dented because it was a Mercedes. It knocked the tree down, but he's like, I didn't even get hurt.
My arm.
And then certainly there was a lot of guys that did drugs too, which was a major problem, cocaine back in the 80s. And the Chicago Bears game, there was like half the team were doing cocaine the night before. So a lot of issues with that kind of stuff. I mean, but it's football. It's a tough game, and you get banged up. Some of these guys have had. Mosi DeTupo was a big fan favorite, but he ended up getting CTE issues and died relatively early. And so some of these guys get beat up. But I like the athletes. The answer another way, I think one of my favorite players is Troy Brown, because he did everything. Yeah. Yeah, in an exhibition game, he played quarterback, but he was a wide receiver, punt returner, and he played defensive back, and he intercepted Drew Bledsoe in a game when he was playing against the Bills. And he's just a superhuman being. He learned his hand-eye coordination working on a farm in South Carolina, catching melons, when he was 7, 8 years old. Here you go. Put up, So Wes Welker's another guy that just came out of nowhere. Nobody wanted him, and next thing you know, he's catching 100 passes a year.
He killed us when he was with Miami. Wes Welker was always just had his biggest games against the Patriots.
But he did nothing else against everybody else. And then he came here, he was awesome.
I swear that's why they were like, you know what? This guy's killing us. Let's go put him on our team. Because he was that good.
And then he catches a 99-yard pass against them, the Dolphins, to set it,
That's right.
But, the underdog stories is what everyone likes, the guys that, they don't have an 8th-round pick, anymore. A 7th-round pick. That's what Troy Brown was. They cut it at 6, so he was the last guy drafted that late in the draft. And then of course, you love Brady, 199th pick. 4 quarterbacks, really, in 2000, 2001. No one keeps 4 quarterbacks, but they saw how he practiced. They saw how he ran the scout team. They saw his intensity, and they saw that, hey, maybe there's something here. And this week, everyone's talking about, the Bledsoe, Mo Lewis thing, but Brady was ready. Maybe it was 3 months, maybe it was 6 months, but he outworked anyone on the team. And that's the reason they brought Rodney Harrison in. They outworked everybody.
I remember listening, hearing Perillo always say too, Brady stuck out in those training camps, and, you could tell that he had something special in him, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And you develop your skills. I mean, it was in Julian Edelman's book, Relentless. Julian Edelman flies out to California and says, I want to catch some passes. So Brady says, okay, we're just going to do one play. We're going to do it over and over and over and over and over until we master it, until I know my steps and when to release it and where your shoulders are going to be. And we're doing it. And Julian says, I got it. He says, no, you don't. Keep going out there, full speed. And he says, oh, we've done about 50 of them. He says, no, we've done 83 of them, and we're doing 500, so get back over there. And they just kept doing it until 500 times. They did the same play over and over a period of a couple hours. Edelman makes the catch in the 28-3 game. That all pays off.
And you put the work in it. You put the work in anything, it shows. Like,
exactly.
And that's what Brady did. I mean, he's the epitome of that. He's awesome.
Did he really say? Do you know if he really said to Robert Kraft, "I'm the best decision you've ever made"?
All indications are yes.
Okay, because there was some well, did he really say it? Did he not say? I've always believed he said it, even if he didn't. I wanted to believe because it's such a great quote.
Well, I mean, the thing, I've done some research, and everyone says, "How do you become great?" And I'm in the life coaching business a little bit now with all these stories. And one of the stories I tell is 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds. This is, if you have a goal, you start telling people when you're 9, 10, 11, 12. Tom's older sister, Maureen, was the star of the family. She was in the Olympics, softball team, and she's 17, 18, and he's 10, 11, 12. And everywhere Maureen went, "Oh, this is my little brother. This is my little brother, Tommy." And he went to his mother and says, "I'm sick of being called little Tommy and little Maureen's little brother." He says, "I am going to be more famous than Maureen. I am going to be more famous." And she says, "Write it down." And he's 10 years old. He says, everyone in the world is going to know my name, Tom Brady, 10 years old. And then at home, he went and he practiced a 5-step drop. And he had these 5 little spots in the backyard where he did his 5-step drop. And he played on his freshman team, and they lost every game. He never even got into a game, even they went 0-10. But he was practicing his 5-step drop, and then the next year, and then eventually he worked his way up. And when he went to Michigan, he was, way on the depth chart, but he outworked them all and outworked them all. He had that chip in his shoulder. He says, "Since I've been 10 years old, I'm going to be it. I'm going to be great, and I'm going to be the best." And then no one drafts him until the 6th round, and he's like, "Man, you guys don't have any idea what's in my hole, what's in my heart, what's in my soul, what makes me tick. Watch out." And there we go. 45 years later,
he showed the world, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too.
But it starts with the dream. It starts with that vision, and it starts with that work ethic.
And, I still don't know how people argue he's not the greatest of all time. Like, I still don't get why people think there's an argument for anyone else. And yeah, you can say, this one had a better arm, like Marino could throw the ball better. This one had better footwork or whatever. How do you argue 7 Super Bowls? How do you argue? Like, he never had a bad Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes last year sucked in the Super Bowl. That never was Brady, right? That was never Brady. Never, even the 3 losses, he never had a bad game in the Super Bowl. And still people want to throw it out there. Everyone's a hater. Like, what did you think of Deflategate? I mean, it was bullshit. What did you think of that?
So I was talking to my wife a half hour ago. I said, "This is probably going to come up on this show."
It wasn't even in my head till right then. I don't know why.
So did you hear earlier that season that there was deflated balls in the Minnesota and Carolina game?
No.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because nobody cares about Minnesota and Carolina. But in the Minnesota-Carolina game, in the cold, they measured the balls at halftime. They're way under deflated. They pumped them up. No big deal. Nobody cared. But, in the deflate game, it was a former Jets person that went on to the NFL that ratted them out and said, "Hey, they're under deflated. The balls went into the bathroom for 15 minutes. How long does it take to, go to the bathroom for 15 minutes?" All that kind of stuff. But it was just, that's the way it is. There are balls that are heavy, that some guys like it heavy, some guys like it lighter, easy to catch. But it had no effect in the game. 45-7, we smoked them. It didn't matter. They suspended Brady. They ended up coming back and winning the Super Bowl that year, anyways.
He actually was better with the ball. After they inflated the balls, he was better. Didn't Aaron Rodgers come out and say, "I like him pumped up too much"? Like, I go over
all over the place. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they were all over. Yeah.
That was the biggest absolute joke. That 4-game suspension. And it's like, here's a guy that hasn't, had a domestic violence situation, hasn't had a drug issue, hasn't had a DUI. Like, he's what you want to be, the face of the NFL. And all they did was fuck with him. Like, I don't never understood that.
Well, if you ever have Jerry Thornton on, he'll go off for half an hour about Roger Goodell.
We did have Jerry, and he did. He went off. He did. That's so funny. Yeah, Jerry was on, and I mean, I don't know if there's a man that loves Tom Brady more than him. Like, he's so funny, but he did go off on it because I mean, it's
Yeah,
bullshit. Like,
it is.
and the
No
whole
question.
Spygate thing, Spygate was bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't every team doing that at the time?
Yeah, but they were told
Absolutely.
not to, and they kept doing it, right? Wasn't that the deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was if they were on the field versus being up 10 feet or 20 feet, that kind of thing. But it didn't help at all. You can't communicate. I mean, the Patriots' first game in 1960, they practiced. They played against the Denver Broncos, and they practiced at BU Field. The Broncos went on the field first and practiced, and then they got off the field. And the coach of the Broncos stuck around and watched the Patriots practice, and no one cared. And then the next day they played, and he knew all the plays. So there's always been someone trying to find an extra edge, find out what the audible is or what this play call is, all that kind of stuff. So it's been going on forever.
So now I'm going to backtrack a little bit to Russ Francis. Comparing, because a lot of people say Gronk was the best tight end ever.
Yeah.
And there's an argument there. If Russ Francis played in the time where like he had a Brady, I mean, there wouldn't even be a comparison.
Well, Gronk was tough to tackle. Gronk was a monster. He could catch something 6 inches off the ground and 15 feet off the ground. There was one catch that he made that he actually flipped over against the Chiefs and landed on his head, pile drived himself on the head, and then just popped himself right back up. So
Was at that
Gronk was
game.
just an amazing guy, just running guys over. And Francis was more finesse, speed, finesse, hand-eye coordination. But Gronk, there's no one that touches Gronk. It's Mike Ditka and John Mackey and some of those guys that played back in the day. Gronk was special, and he could block. I mean, I don't know why he was on an extra point one time, broke his arm, an extra point, but he got injured a little bit more. 9 or 10 different surgeries. Russ Francis never really got hurt. Russ was so special, though.
I more asked that question because a lot of people haven't seen Russ Francis play and don't really understand how good he was. But of course, Gronk was a beast, and he did have Brady throwing him the ball. I mean, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I mean, he made a lot of one-handed catches, and one of the reasons that Russ Francis made a lot of one-handed catches is because his roommate, Darryl Stingley, who was 5'11", 180 pounds, he was fearless, and he would go over the middle and make one-handed catches, and they were roommates. And Russ says, hey, if you can make a one-handed catch, I'm going to try that too. And that really put Russ in glory, making this tight end who was really supposed to block. They didn't really have a lot of athletic tight ends back in the 70s. He didn't even play football his senior year in college. He only played 1 year in college, When they drafted him, he's like, I don't want to play. I want to play baseball. And the only reason he came to New England, because they said, we'll give you tickets to the Red Sox, because he was a baseball player. He was drafted as a pitcher for the Kansas City Royals, rather. He was a left-handed pitcher and drafted in baseball. He said, yeah, maybe if I can make the team for the Red Sox, 6'6", left-handed pitcher, but when they started playing football, they said, no, you're playing football. We're going to give you a lot of money. Baseball won't give you that kind of money. Okay, I'll play football. He was that kind of athlete.
So now when Gronk came out, was he more known for blocking, or did they when they drafted him, did they think he was going to be that good receiving the ball? Like, I thought initially he was supposed to be like the blocker because they got
he was a tough guy. I mean, he was a blocker. He made a couple plays, and we ran over some guys in college,
right?
The big games that he had against the Redskins and the Colts and some of those games where we just ran over guys, and then they started hitting them low because you bear hug him and he just kind of shrugs his shoulder and see you later, I'm off, all those kind of plays. But the Gronk was incredible, no question about it.
I remember that catch that he made, like you had just mentioned, 6 inches off the ground. And it was for a touchdown. Like, the size of that man to go down with that flexibility and catch a ball with someone draped all over him. That catch outside of Edelman's catch, that was
the athleticism of these guys insane.
Yeah, just the athleticism on him. Darryl Stingley, you bring him up, and a lot of people probably don't know what happened to him. And it was such a tragedy, in a preseason game.
He didn't even have a contract. Russ said, don't play in a game, you don't have a contract. It's an exhibition. You don't get paid. I mean, and nowadays they pay a little bit, but it's not a regular season paycheck. And he says, I'm a football player. I got to play. And Grogan had a tendency of overthrowing. He threw it high. So there was times that they had to go up and get the one hand because it was 12, 15 feet off the ground. And it's over the middle. It's high. He goes up to get it, and Jack Tatum just lined him up and just nailed him and broke his neck. And he was paralyzed in the field, devastating, and they didn't have the technology they have nowadays. And this was in Oakland, and they put him in the hospital. And John Madden, the coach of the Raiders, went to see him every single day for months and months and months. Nobody knew that either. And then after a year, the Patriots said, well, we only have a 1-year health insurance on him. We're not going to pay the rest of his medical bills. And that's where Chuck Fairbanks freaked out. He was a coach and said, you can't do that to one of my players. I can't coach for you anymore. And that's one of the reasons he left to leave the Patriots, because the ownership wasn't doing the right job by his players. And then the Rooneys of the Steelers stepped up and said, the NFL is going to take care of your medical bills. And all the owners stepped in and got insurance for this guy. He lived till 55 years old. I think he was like 26, 27 when he broke his neck. And there was a game where Stingley showed, I think in 79, against the Steelers, and it was at Schaefer Stadium, and he's in the wheelchair, and they had a 6-minute standing ovation for Darryl Stingley about a year after he was paralyzed, but he was able to fly and be at the game. It was just thunderous that everyone was happy to see him. But he did a lot for the community in Chicago and for rehabilitation about injuries and neck injuries and stuff like that. Super, super nice guy, but tough story.
Yeah, no, just an absolute tragedy. What team do you think over the years was the best team? Because that's something that everyone kind of debates. Was it the team that went undefeated? Was it the 03 or 04 team? What do you think was the best collectively best team?
Well, the records that they set in 2007 were insane. I mean, they just demolished everyone they played. But as they got closer, 13-0, 14-0, they had a couple lucky breaks where, fourth down, do it again. A guy, they bring the play back. They beat the Ravens on a freaky play. There was 2 or 3 games, and then the Giants 38-35. With Randy Moss catching the touchdown pass and all that. So they were tired after keeping that pace up for a long period of time. But any one of those 3 teams, they were solid. To win how many games in a row? Like 25 games in a row they won over the 2003 and 2004. No one was touching them. And there's some pretty good teams. But, that game, against Carolina in the Super Bowl, that was back and forth, And the story really behind that is that they brought this guy, Brian Kitchen, in as the long snapper about 2 games before the end of the regular season. And he hadn't been a long snapper for years, but he used to be a long snapper for the Cleveland Browns. And he comes in and he plays a couple games. And the night before the Super Bowl, he's cutting a piece of bread and he cuts his thumb. He's got like 6 stitches in his thumb. And Belichick says, you better not F this up tomorrow. You better be able to hike the ball tomorrow. And that night he was hiking the ball to his pillow at night like 1,000 times. And he's mush. He's like, man, I'm going to screw up. There's going to be 1 billion people on TV. Oh my God. And early in the game, he had a bad snap to Vinatieri, and Vinatieri missed an indoor field goal. And Vinatieri never misses it. It was because of the snap. But on the last play of the game, he said, concentrated. He said, all right, just relax. Perfect snap. We win the game. But a lot of this is the mental game. But any one of those 3 teams were just solid with Hall of Fame players and just immense to see how they just crushed them. But to lose to the Giants, that was tough.
It still burns.
I know. It comes up, and it's like you have that visceral reaction in your stomach. Like it's almost like you hear it, and it's a kick in the nuts. Like so wrong that they lost that game, especially on that catch. That was like bullshit.
Rodney Harrison
should have been sacked.
Punched. Yeah, he was, and that's the thing that people don't know, Gino, is that back then, if you kind of grabbed the quarterback, they would sometimes blow the whistle.
The whistle, right?
Right. So Jarvis Green had him waiting for the whistle. There's no whistle, and he wiggles himself out. And then Seymour has him, and he's got him in a hold, and he wiggles out of that. So there was 2 times that the players thought, okay, I got him. And they kept the play going, and then Rodney Harrison, is trying to rip the guy's arm off, and it catches on his helmet. I mean, that's insane. What are the odds of that? 1,000,000 to 1? But that's football.
I watched that in the Buffalo Wild Wings in Iowa City. I had a Sunday game in Quad City. I was driving in the Des Moines apartment, and Highway 80 shut down. So it was a snowstorm. And then, I pull off Iowa City in the second quarter. I just sat there and got polluted. It was awful.
Well, so here I am. I got a full-time job. I got a wife. I got kids. I got dogs. And I'm working every Patriots game during that year. And I'm writing the book, and I'm editing the book. And there's 14-0, 15-0. And the publisher says, if you guys run the table, you've got just about 95%. It's going to be close enough. We'll get that out. And then the next day, we can't do it now. You lost. It was like 15 years, 18 years of research, doing everything to get this 800-page book out. And now we're putting the Giants book out instead. There's 2 more years before my book came out. But I had like 50 people in my house ready to go, like, oh my God, you're going to sell 1 million copies of this. Oh, and I just said, I turned the game off. I said, everyone get out. I didn't even know what to say.
That's way worse than my story.
It took my wife about 10 years to get over that, too, because I didn't see her for a long time.
My wife's still not over that game. Every time it gets brought up or in a documentary, she just wants to change the channel, fast forward it. It's gross.
Well, a Giants fan said something. Just want to punch him right in the face.
I got to thank Malcolm Butler for saving my marriage, though. So Malcolm Butler, my wife doesn't understand football, first down, second down, that they practice it. They do the same play over and over until they get it right. And then she saw the practice of Malcolm Butler. You got to do this, you got to do that. So I would do a lot of public speaking, and I'd bring her on stage and say, all right, you stand here, you're Brandon Browner. And I'd bring people up, and you got to make sure that this guy doesn't get across. You got to turn your shoulder, and you got to catch it like we do it all slow motion. And then she goes home, and she says, what's that station again? ESP what? I said, ESPN. I want to see that Malcolm Butler play. And she's downstairs by herself watching that play. And she's, now I get it. They practiced that. He knew what to do. Finally, you finally get why I'm so passionate about what I do about this.
Yeah, they just show up on Sunday.
Yeah. How does they know that where the ball's going to be?
Well, speaking of Malcolm Butler, why didn't he play in that Super Bowl?
There's a lot of different theories out there, but I think that he really wasn't mentally ready to prepare. Whether he was concussed, whether he was sick, but the theory that I go with is that we're going to play in front of 1 billion people, and we don't think you're ready. They knew pretty much on Thursday that he might not have been capable of playing in the whole game. He played in one play, I think. But I think the defensive backs knew Thursday and Friday that he was probably not going to play that much. But that's the story I had. He was probably just not mentally ready.
Mental health, was it something that happened?
Just he might have been concussed. He might have been sick. He might not have been completely focused.
Wild.
He missed a meeting or two, that kind of stuff. I don't know if we can count on you.
I still think we would have won if he played.
It would have been like, go in with that broken leg, right? Go keep playing. Can you give us another one? You're better than what we got.
That's it. Yeah, and his backup, missed a tackle in one of the plays. Yeah.
Backup was terrible.
Yeah.
I think even Malcolm Butler concussed and high and fucking whatever else, he would have been better. You know? Not that there was one theory out there about the, whole marijuana thing, which is bullshit. I mean, I don't think that should matter at all anyway, but
I didn't want talking about them doing coke before a game.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, to go back to
it wasn't theirs.
Yeah.
It wasn't theirs.
So in the Packers game, when the Bledsoe and Curtis Martin, Ben Coates, and Parcells, Troy Brown was hurt in that game, and Desmond Howard ran past the guy that was Troy Brown was on the kickoff team, and Troy Brown wasn't on the team. His backup missed the tackle on Desmond Howard, and Desmond Howard took it for a touchdown. Little things like that make a difference. If Troy Brown was there, maybe he makes a tackle, Desmond Howard doesn't get the touchdown, and maybe we stay in the game.
And that's why he was over the backup.
Right.
Yeah. That game against Green Bay, that was 97, right? Was that 97 or 98? 97.
97.
And it was in New Orleans.
Yep.
And I was doing the Coast League. I was down in Biloxi. We had an apartment in Biloxi. And our good friend Craig Ross,
Oh, yeah.
Craig Ross was in that apartment. And Kevin Lord, I don't know if you work with Lordy. Kevin Lord out of San Diego. And I believe he passed away a couple of years ago. But we drove from Biloxi over to New Orleans. So it was Ross, me, Kevin, and Craig's girlfriend, Dalliance. And we drive over. And of course, all four of us know out of these four, Craig and I, it's going to be ugly. Whether we win or lose, we're probably going to get into a fight and we're going to be drunk. Went to a place that was $7 for 6 beers for $7.
Wow.
But I remember the like first minute and a half, we're going nuts in people's faces. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah, we got fucking killed.
It wasn't even a game. Yeah.
No. And luckily we were rushed out of Bourbon Street. So before anything could happen, but I'll never forget being there.
All right, so I'll give you another story you've never heard before. The Patriots were solid. I think this was 2003. And remember when they played in Jacksonville and they couldn't get any hotel rooms in Jacksonville? They had to bring in the cruise ships.
Yes.
Don't remember this. Oh, is this okay? Yeah, maybe I do. Yeah, go ahead.
So the Patriots, the chief of marketing, he says, "Hey, we're going to make a Super Bowl. We're going to play down there." So he sends one of his guys down there and says, "Buy every hotel room for the Super Bowl. The week before, the week of. Don't tell them you're the Patriots. Just say, hey, we got a big thing going on. We got some things. I'm buying this. I'm buying that." He bought every hotel room, every conference room, put all this money down in October. And then the Patriots make it. And everyone's like, we can't get hotel rooms. And then the Patriots had all the hotel rooms and they're selling it to all the teams and stuff. But they were so confident they were going to make the Super Bowl that they bought everything in advance. You can't do that nowadays. But then they had to bring in cruise ships because there was no place to put all these people.
In October. That's confident.
Absolutely.
So we asked Jerry Thornton this, and we got to ask you, Brady or Belichick?
Brady. Brady is the quarterback. I mean, Belichick made some decisions. I don't know why Gostkowski didn't kick the field goal against the Giants, 4th and 18. I never understood that. The odds of that, like 0.0 field goal, 47 or 48-yard field goal, that's no brainer. But Belichick put a team together. They brought in, guys like Harrison and, that type of culture. It's the quarterback, it's the leader that really sets the tone. When Brady's playing against Ty Law and McGinnis and Seymour, he elevates their game. They elevate his game. It's the guys on the field that make the plays. You can put all the guys together, but it's the guys that makes the plays that wins the games.
Didn't Tom Brady already prove that it was Brady?
Yeah.
He went down to Tampa.
Right. Yeah.
Now Belichick's coaching high school.
Yeah. No, he's dating a high schooler.
Right. That's right.
No, I ask, and I don't disagree. Belichick did obviously put together defenses like 2001 defense. That was a huge part of that win, but it wasn't like Brady didn't march him down the field,
right?
In that last drive. So it's like, but yeah, but I have to ask for fun,
it's all about turnovers. The game is such a, one player or another, stepping in and out of bounds or, something like that. But you make the play, you make the throw. I had a buddy of mine that took a big client to the Saints game many years ago, and he left in the fourth quarter. We're down by 2 touchdowns, and he's on the 10-yard line. And we come back, he throws a touchdown pass with 17 seconds left right in front of my friend and his potential client, and I call him and said, "Man, it was unbelievable." He said, "I'm in the parking lot." I said, "You never leave a game with Brady."
No.
I don't know
show
if
ponies
or not, but you never leave a game. I'm sorry.
No, I never leave any game early because I just, why do you go to a game and leave early? You paid, no matter what, Red Sox, Bruins, Page, doesn't matter. And then because you never know what can happen. Toronto Bruins, that game there, game 7.
I didn't leave that one. A lot of people did.
Yeah, 28-3. You can point out a bunch of examples where if you leave early, you're a schmuck. That's my theory, but, who am I to judge? But I never leave early.
No, you never get there early and stay late. That's it.
Yep. And so can I bring up, I just joked about Belichick and Jordan. Is he ruining his legacy in North Carolina?
I think all over the world, actually.
Not just in North Carolina.
Not just North Carolina.
Yes. That's a great
It's
answer.
everywhere. Yeah.
That was beautiful.
It's sad. I don't really understand it at all.
Do you think he'll ever coach in the NFL again?
No.
No.
No, he's a laughing stock now. Put
Do
him
you
back
think
in
it
the
really
studio,
does
maybe.
give-
He's brilliant there. Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, so I was actually just interviewed for a documentary, like specifically about this, and it was I'm not supposed to talk about it, but you know, if they see this, then great.
Yeah, if they want to
Yeah.
shut us down, then that's perfect. That means
Yeah,
people are
so
paying attention.
I get an email from Vice about this. It would be great. But I kind of said no because, like, no matter what he does from here on out, does it really erase what he did in the past? I mean, he's still the Scotty Bowman of the Patriots.
Right. No, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question. The way he analyzed them, and that's one of the things that I like to share with, just life. Be prepared for everything. Be prepared. Do your homework. Work hard and figure out if
That's what he
something's gonna
says to
happen,
his
what's your
girlfriend
options,
too.
You know.
Well, Gino, you say that about refereeing. I mean, that applies to everything.
I mean, you got to expect the unexpected in a hockey game, right? Like, you don't know what the hell's going to happen. You just got to be ready and react to it. Like, I don't go out there like looking for penalties. They just happen, and I put my arm up. I'm not the one out there slashing people. I just react to what people do, and you gotta know what to do when shit hits the fan.
But you got to be in position too. You got to know the game so you know how to see the play. I mean, there was a game at the Patriots where the referee couldn't see where the guy went in and out of bounds, and he didn't go out of bounds, but they called him out of bounds, and he says, "I couldn't see, but I had to make a call."
Yeah, it's all about sight lines, right?
Yeah.
It's all about sight lines, and you got to make a split-second decision on the information you have. And he might have saw like an indication that that toe definitely stepped out, but and then you go look at the replay, you watch it 10 times in different angles, and like it's all like, oh, that angle, that's where the referee was, so he's not going to have that angle. And then you look at the other one, and his partner might have it, and that's how they get the call. But now they get video replay and all that to kind of correct these wrongs. My question to you is, if they had replay way back when, how many different outcomes you think would have happened that would have changed the course of history?
Well, there was a couple times that the Gronk had mauled at the end zone, and they didn't call it. I mean, Luke Kuechly, tackled him in the end zone, and they saw it. They picked up the flag, and Aqib Talib in the Denver game, no penalty here. Probably not that many, but there are a few, and certainly that game against the Raiders, whether that was a penalty because they used to crush the quarterback back then, was that roughing the passer, but that could have changed the whole 76 and, God bless America, all that kind of stuff. Patriots out of nowhere. They could have changed the
Right.
whole environment for the Patriots for 20 years if they had won. And then they failed and the coach left. And next thing you know, it took us a long time to
Right,
get
the
back.
culture, the couch is lost, right? Because you're not winning. Yeah,
It's a good thing they
Things
didn't
like
have replay when in the snowblow game
Yeah,
with the
truck roll,
snowblower.
right.
No, the one where
Oh, the 1982 snowblow. Yeah.
yeah, the guy wasn't he on work release from prison, and he came out and snowblowed where the field
kicker
goal was
and the
going to
kick,
happen. Yeah.
So that was Steve Grogan's idea. Ron Meyer was the coach, and Mark Henderson, who was a burglar, and he says, "All right, you're on work parole in Norfolk prison. You got to do a certain amount of community hours." And the snowplow was Bucko Kilroy's snowplow that was used that he brought in, and they would go in between the 10-yard line, the 20-yard line, different timeouts, and he'd just go across. And John Smith tried a field goal, landed right on his rear end because it rained, it froze, it snowed, it rained. And so you're playing on an inch of ice with snow on top of it on Sunday. There's like a minute to go in the game, and Steve Grogan says, "Hey, how about you take that snowplow guy and just go to the 37-yard line, not the 30-yard line, and just make a little spot that John Smith could plant his foot." He does it. He plants his foot, gets it through. We win 3-0.
good.
Schuler's going nuts on the sidelines. And then after the game, they're yelling at him, "You should have done that." He said, "What are you going to do, arrest me? I got to go back to prison anyways,
Time you do back in Boys Town.
And the coach actually had to call the prison because he was going to be late. He had to be back in prison by 6, and it was 6:30. They were interviewing him on the sidelines. Says, "Hey, coach, I'm going to be back in trouble by, can you call the prison, tell him I'm late?" And by the time he get back to prison, he was a hero because he was on all the news and stuff. "Hey, we saw you on the news. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. You're all right. You saved the game for us,
I always wondered whose idea that was.
That was
To
Steve
do that.
Grogan's.
Wow.
And
Love
then Myers
Grogan.
says, "Hey, get that guy out there." Yeah,
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Now,
And then they changed the
where's
rules.
the we're zebras, so I got to ask this question: the officiating in the NFL, because it's well documented, especially in my opinion, the officiating in the NHL has never been worse than it is right now. And we've been into it and why they just hired a guy with I think 58 games of experience, 58 total games of experience, and he's in the NHL now. Absolutely ridiculous. But the officiating in the NFL hasn't been all that great either. What's your thoughts on overall, and especially through the years, obviously DraftKings and, all this gambling has changed everything because it's such a multi-billion-dollar business. But what's your opinion on the zebras in football?
Well, how much do the NHL referees get paid? Probably not a lot
A
of
lot.
money. They
No,
do
they
now?
get like
Yeah, they get a
200
good hunk of
grand,
change.
250. Yeah, they
The
make
veterans do, yeah. The newer
veterans.
guys get around like 100, 100 and a half. Yeah.
So that was the problem for a long time. These guys would just get game checks, They would just get, whatever money, and then eventually maybe they got a year contract or 2 years. So they weren't part of a union. They weren't just part of anything. They just showed up and they didn't get a lot of money. And nowadays, I don't know exactly, what their incentive is to really get to a certain level to play in the playoffs and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it, the NFL's just let them play. I mean, there's so many different things that happen that could turn around, and I don't think they really care too much about the officiating that much, even though there's some really blatant errors out there.
Now, Matt Light talked about how in preparation for a game, knowing the crew,
Right.
some crews call a lot of penalties or call holding, or they,
Right.
key on certain things, and being prepared for that, you knew kind of how you could play or not play and get away with certain things. But it just seems like there's just been, I don't know. And I guess in football, it's different than hockey in that every play is, it's played and then it's done. Where hockey is a continuous thing where a trip could happen there, a cross check, and then, a hold all in a minute. Where football, it's like, all right, this 30-second play or 20-second play, I don't know. I think that's where it varies. Wouldn't you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely varies, but I think what struggles in officiating and why I think the professionals have trouble with it is they're constantly changing the rules. And
Right.
they're viewing things for being legal their whole life. And now it's like, oh, is that a penalty? Or did he hit him in the head? Did he intentionally hit him in the head? And then they have all this different language, and then now it's like he hit the quarterback, but did he really hit the quarterback? Is it late, not late? All this kind of stuff. And now they just they get too complex, and it's, I don't know, they're looking at too many different things to make a split-second decision sometimes, and I think that hinders referees' judgment. I don't know.
And we talked about it earlier with, Jarvis Green and Richard Seymour having Eli Manning in their grasp, and they didn't call it. And then the Ty Law, he beat up the Colts, and everyone's like, hey, he got 3 interceptions against Peyton Manning, and they got to change the rules. You can't Ty Law rule, so they changed the rules the next year. So I agree with you, Gino. They changed the rules to kind of keep the scoring and keep the interest and keep the FanDuels and the DraftKings, and they're like, oh well, we blew that, but it's still football.
Wait till you see now what they're going to come up with all this new technology they're going to be doing. It's just like the tennis, right? Like, oh, was the ball in or out? And it's like a virtual thing. It's not the actual play of the ball. It's just some video. So it's like, okay, do we want this? Do we want this one in or out? Like, play that video. Like, how do we know that that's actually the clip? Like, you don't know. You trust them what they're doing. So it's like, are we going to trust the NFL to, every half inch or every, whatever, like this virtual replay stuff? I think you have to still see the play live and make a judgment regardless of what the technology is. That's the whole purpose of the game, like keeping it pure, keeping it real, not what the technology indicates. With baseball, they're going with the automatic strikes now and all this kind of crap. What happened to the feel for the game and all that kind of stuff? I don't know.
And you slow the
I think
momentum
it's
down. I
one.
mean, they only play like,
Right.
12 minutes of real time in a 60-minute game. You keep you do a timeout. All right, you get TV timeouts, that kind of stuff. They're used to that. But you call a replay that takes 7 minutes. You just, the team, they all the momentum. They've lost it all, that energy, that focus, that mindset. Now they got to get it all back up, that focus again. And the fans are getting restless. The TV,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And they don't
Keep
know
the
what they're
energy
looking
high.
at, and they come out with a call, and what the hell what just happened? And
do
now
like
they have the
replay.
video the assist, right? Were you gonna say
Yeah,
that?
replay
The replay
assist.
assist, yes.
I actually like that
I
because
do
it's
too.
quick, it's immediate, and they correct errors. Like even the placement of the ball. Some of these side judges come in and they're clearly off by a foot and a half, and that replay assist says no, that's a first down. I like that more than the coach challenging.
Well, it's those
'Cause
plays that everybody in the building knows, right? Like everybody
Mhm.
in the building knows that should have been a touchdown or that shouldn't have been a touchdown, one or the other, right? And just correct it quick and move on. Let's go.
My favorite ref is Ed Hockley. I don't know if you have one, but I love Ed Hockley. Yeah, he's all jacked up and stuff.
That was you.
That was me reffing lacrosse.
You burp, you're gonna split your shirt.
Yeah, it was
Love
pretty big back then. Yeah, Ed Hockley for me is, and then I was kids there, and I don't know. It's maybe the only refs I know his name too. There's a couple other ones I like, but I like him the most. So now, last thing, my last thing would be the Patriots now going forward.
Yeah.
Drake May seems like the real deal, and he's been inconsistent to this point in the season where, he had that great game against Miami and then, kind of falters against Pittsburgh. But I think he's the real deal. I think the future does look good. How good, that'll remain to be seen. But where do you see the Patriots in the, this year, next year, going forward? Based on your knowledge of the past, what do you think of the Patriots now?
I like Drake. I mean, Drake he's got the nice touch. He's intelligent. He's accurate for the most part. He can run the ball a little bit. I mean, look at Josh Allen. I mean, it took him 5 or 6 years to get this. The speed of the game is the toughest thing that I think to deal
He's
with.
so young, too.
The guy's open, and if you just don't hit it right, I mean, that's what Brady. He would know when you were going to turn, and he'd get it to you for the most part. So we got to get an offensive and defensive line. We got to get some linebackers. I mean, the Spillane's guy's a tackling machine, but you got to build a team around him. And that takes time. It takes the draft. It takes the culture. But if he plays for another 10 years, I think we got a couple chances to make some noise in the playoffs in a couple years. But Mahomes has got to be gone. And some of these other guys, who else is going to step up after, or, Jalen Hurts or some of these guys that are out there. When they're in their 30s, are they still going to be playing? So I say give him a chance, but we got to develop a team, and he doesn't have the talent right now.
Got to get weapons for him.
Right.
I mean, you look at Tua in Miami. If he didn't have Waddle, or Hill,
yeah,
he'd already be forgotten. I really think so. I don't know. So you got to get May that Stephon Diggs is good, but he's not the Stephon Diggs of old, right? He's more of a possession receiver now. I think you need that real bit, like that true number one receiver. The running backs, if they could hold on to the ball, I think would be all good. But
sure,
that's a whole nother issue. But yeah, I agree. I think the future looks bright.
Yeah.
It seems to be, we went from winning everything to like all of a sudden, our teams aren't doing anything. Although the Red Sox, the magic number is 1 when we're taping this. Next week when this drops, they'll already have probably made the playoffs unless they take a colossal major fuck up and not get it. But as of this taping, their one game is magic. Magic numbers 1 game. So they're back. Who knows? But
who knows?
we'll have to see.
Anything gonna happen. Well, this was a blast, guys. A lot of fun.
I just froze. I hope.
Oh, there we go.
There
You
we go.
kind of froze up there for a second. I'm sure it won't show on your end, but yeah, this was a blast.
This was awesome.
I learned stuff about the Patriots that I never, I
I love the
wondered
stories
about.
and the insight.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you wonder about. And it's cool to talk to someone that knows their stuff. I mean, as well as you do. I don't, it's really cool.
Thank you. It's been a blast. I mean, this has all been a journey. I tell people, enjoy your journey. If you fall into something you like, every time that I showed up to the Patriots 2 hours before a game, I can't believe I'm in the press room. I can't believe I'm on the field. I can't believe I'm taking pictures. I can't believe I'm standing next to Gronk and Brady. And oh my, and for 15 years, holy moly, it was a dream come true. And now I
So
tell
cool.
stories about that.
Yeah,
It's awesome. Good
Gino,
for you.
one of your things is always enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey, man. It's awesome.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Well, we're
Tell
glad
us-
you are part of our journey, Bob. This has been not only entertaining, educational, and a shit ton of fun. I mean, it's I love it. I love it. So awesome
Well,
stuff.
I'll see you out on the front of a microphone someday, telling more stories. You know,
I hope
Yes.
so.
Love it.
share some of these stories. And Gino, I'm sure I'll meet you somewhere down the road. So
Absolutely. See you at a Pats game someday.
There
Yeah,
we
no,
go.
we'll have to make that happen for sure.
Absolutely.
And that's going to do it for episode 81. Troy Brown. No, sorry. Not the Russ Francis,
Randy Moss.
Randy Moss episode. I
And
don't
I'm
know
going to
why.
throw an
Troy
NHL
Brown was last
linesman
week.
Ryan
He's number
Daisy.
80.
81 Ryan Daisy.
Oh, Ryan Daisy. We could have thrown him in there at the beginning. A local guy, and a good linesman.
Great
He's one of the
linesman.
good
Stanley
ones.
Cup Finals.
Yep. We got Rooney and him. It's good stuff. Some local guys. So, but that'll do it. Episode 81. I want to thank our sponsor, the Referees Crease, your one-stop shop for all your refereeing needs. Of course, we want to thank AOA Studios for all they do, and also want to remind you to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on the social medias, the Instagram, the Facebook, and of course, absolutely. And you can catch Gino and I in Full Ride with Pat Shea on YouTube, kind of making a resurgence and putting the clips out there. Full Ride, great show, a lot of fun. You can catch me at many local comedy places. Check out my schedule, markrileycomedy.com, and chirpingzebras.com is where you can get all the information on us. So for our producer, Josh Dolan, for Gino Bender Jr., I'm Mark Riley saying, see you next time right here on the Chirping Zebras